Hey everybody, welcome back to my sewing channel. Today I am bringing you a tutorial on how to make the Trekoda backpack. As you can see, I have this one here. I made this one a long time ago. I carry this as my everyday driver, and when Country Cow Designs came out with this pattern, she graciously sent it to me to check it out. And so I kind of meshed the two patterns together. I used her overall tutorial and pattern sizing, and then I added the quilting details and just a couple of other minor changes. I do go over those in the video, so pay attention throughout if you want to make it that you want to make a bag that looks like mine. This bag has two pockets on the front, the zipper, and then the slip pocket, which I really love that slip addition. And then it has, the pattern itself calls for a zipper inside pocket, but I just omitted the zipper and made it a slip pocket, and then it has a nice open area. She really covers how to make your lining not be baggy and saggy inside the bag, which I really enjoyed. And the construction method is a birth bag, so it's not drop-in, so it makes it a little bit easier. I did quilt my zipper gusset and my front pocket, and I tell you how I do that in the video, so if you're interested in that, you can find that in this video. And I did kind of change my sizing because I wanted my zipper to come down longer. You can see on the one that I made my zipper come almost all the way to the bottom, and I love that because the entire backpack flops open and you can see everything in there. I also mimicked the way that I did my straps and my hang loops and my strap connectors, so the whole back panel is a little different than how the pattern actually calls for it. But yeah, so pop over to Country Cow Designs, get the Trekoda backpack pattern, get it printed, and I will see you to make it. So I've already cut and interfaced all of my pieces. This is going to be my lining, and I have, the outside is going to be all black. Obviously, you've already seen that. So step one on the pattern is she has you start with the straps. So keep in mind that I am going to make quite a few changes throughout the pattern, but I will tell you as I'm doing them, and for the most part, I'm just going to try to go in order as the pattern is written though. So let's see. We're going to do our straps first. Sorry, I did something really weird to my shoulders. It hurts really bad. So if you see me with a crazy arm, that's why. So for my straps, obviously doing them out of cork, and I am going to just do a single layer of cork rather than the double layer that I normally do, but I am going to do some extra stitching. So here is, so this is the quilted backpack that I made for myself, just made it up one day a long time ago. And the Trekoda is very similar, but it has quite a few minor differences. So I am kind of meshing the two patterns together. And so on mine, I did just one layer of cork. You can actually see the seam right there, but on it I did 4 lines of stitching. So I'm going to mimic that on this bag for my sister. So to do that, I'm just going to do like we always do, and you fold each long edge in towards the center. And I'm just going to be super extra careful and make sure that I line them up and that they are touching. So normally I would do the accent color over top of this seam, but not today. I think I tweaked my elbow when I was doing this arm workout yesterday. I was using resistance bands, and I woke up today and it's really painful. See, that's why you shouldn't work out. Try to do something healthy and good for yourself. You get hurt. It didn't even hurt yesterday. I don't know what is going on. Ouch. So if any of you are doctors, leave me a comment with what it could be, but it hurts making that motion straight up and down and reaching forward. It hurts right on the front of my shoulder. And then pushing. Ouch. I don't know. Maybe it's a muscle. Because it only happens when I kind of move my arm in certain ways. But anyways, okay, so we got one strap down. I gotta pin this other strap. so I'm just gonna pop over to my machine and sew. I'm gonna go around the exterior first, and then I'm gonna go, or no, I'm gonna go down the middle first to lock this into place. I don't know what I'm gonna do yet. I guess we'll find out once we get over there. All right, I decided I'm gonna start on the outside. I'm gonna hope that it will hold the center in place. So I'm gonna start by doing the entire perimeter and then looping back down and doing the midline. So the next step that you do is you make the connector straps, or the connector tabs for the rings for the bottom of the straps. And I am changing this because I want to reduce the bulk in my seams. And so I am just doing strips like this, and then I'm going to put my ring on them. And I'm just going to attach this to the backpack instead of doing the triangular piece that is in the pattern. So just for looks, I'm going to top stitch around the edges of these. right, so because I'm not folding this over and it's going to be raw edges, I'm going to paint the sides with edge coat. So I'm going to do that now and let these dry. Sorry about my dogs, they're playing, of course. So if you hear loud noises, that's them. Another little tip that I picked up from Lynn's Handmade is if you put clips on it, and you can stand it up and it'll dry. And so before I do this on this one, I'm just going to hit the edges with a lighter so they're nice and smooth. So the next step is to create the front pocket. She gives the option of a plain flat front pocket or a cargo pocket, and I'm going to do the flat front pocket, but I am adding some quilting onto it because I'm going to make it similar to the one that I made in the past. Now you'll see once I get done with the construction that the pocket size will be much bigger and there'll be a slip pocket on the front. And I'm not quilting the main panel, I'm just going to quilt the pocket front since that'll be the majority of the front that you see. And so right now I'm going to draw my lines, my quilt lines, onto my front pocket here. So I'm just going to line everything up and then draw those lines out now. Now, and because I want the backpack to have this raised texture like on the one that I made before, I'm going to put foam on the back of this, and I figured it was easier to draw my lines before the foam was on it. So what I'm going to do is attach my foam now. And I cut my foam so that it's a 1/2 inch all around so that it doesn't add bulk to my seams. There. Now let's go quilt it. Okay, so the next step is we need to add our zipper in, and I've already gone ahead and cut my zipper down, and I just put some stay stitches here on the end so that my zipper head doesn't come off. And originally in the pattern, you do a top zipper piece that you would make the zipper sandwich out of, and then it would have this piece up here. And I'm going to do that, but I wanted it to be quilted, so I went ahead and added that onto this overall size, and then I'm just going to cut this down. Let's see, so it got a little bit wonky when I was quilting it. Just make sure I'm cutting it correctly. So yes. Okay, so I'm going to take 2 inches off of this top. I think that's what I did, 2 inches. Cut from the side would be easier to see. So I'm going to take 2 inches off of here. Whew, man, my shoulder. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach the zipper on these 2 sides to reduce the bulk. And it will be a little bit bulky at the top and the bottom, but I'm not super concerned with it. And if you want to, which I might end up doing when I get to that point, is I might just snip some of this foam out of here to help with the bulkiness in the seams. But for now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue my zipper down to this panel at the top where there isn't foam. Now I need to find my zipper lining, whatever that may be. Ouch. I think this is it. Yep. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and cut 2 inches off of this as well. And then I'm going to glue, to make the zipper sandwich, I'm going to glue this lining down onto here. I'm just going to pop back over to the machine and sew this down. So I'm going to use a 1/4 inch seam allowance on this zipper. I'm going to close my zipper back up, and then I'm going to fold this down and finger press it and top stitch this into place. I'm just going to fold this side down. There is the bottom half. Okay, so now we need to glue the top section down to the zipper and make the top zipper sandwich. Oh my goodness, my shoulder, good Lord. so now we just need to go sew this down like we did the other side. The next step is to attach the slip pocket lining to the pocket that we just made. I am going to derail from the instructions here and just do it my way for a couple reasons. One is I have to use cork and cotton for my back slip pocket because my cotton is not two-sided, and if I have my cotton like this, I don't want it to be interfacing on the inside of the pocket, so on the inside of the slip pocket. So I want to have cork on the inside of the slip pocket so then it's nice in there. Had I not run out of cotton, I would have cut 2 pieces of cotton, and my lining, my slip pocket lining would be 2 pieces of cotton, but I'm out of cotton, out of this, so I'm just having to supplement. The cork combined with the foam is very thick, so I'm just going to kind of make this up as I go. And in the future, it won't be an issue because I will take all this into account before I cut everything. But welcome to my thought process. So first, I'm just gonna trim as much of this foam away as I can. Hopefully that works. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to take the cotton lining and line up my top edges. And I'm just going to sew the linings together. And I'm going to sew it at a higher seam allowance so that when this part is folded back over, that the pocket is actually much lower. So then when I attach this and flip it, hopefully it'll reduce bulk. So I'm going to pop to the machine and sew that real quick. All right, so you can see I did a really big seam allowance there. Now I'm going to just trim this down. Do a little bit better of a job. Okay, and then hopefully this will work. So what I'm going to do is line this up. I'm going to use this, trim this so that it's flat. There we go. Here goes nothing. All right, I'm going to go sew this. So I'm just going to use a 1/4 inch seam allowance on this one. And what I would like to happen is for this to fold nicely. We will see what happens. All right, it's not too bad. Okay, and now I'm just going to top stitch across this top piece, this top area. doke. So to lock everything in place, I am just going to stitch all around the sides here. That way, hopefully I won't pull my zipper off like I did a few minutes ago. There we go. That's what I was going for here. Let me get this all trimmed up. Looking nice. I'm not going to cut over my zipper though. Alright, so now we need to attach this to the front main panel. And then baste it into place. So this is the point of the pattern where if you were adding the flap, you would do that. Because I'm not adding the flap and I am just laying this pocket on, I do kind of do this much different than the pattern calls for. The pattern has this top section and then the flap, so I just cut out one big main piece because I'm omitting all of that. So I'm just going to clip this into place. My cork stretched and got really misshapen when I was quilting it, so it doesn't quite meet up on the sides, but I will just have to remember that whenever I'm sewing at the end, or whenever I'm attaching this to the gusset. Alright, so that'll be cool. So this, I have the zipper pocket and then it'll have this slip pocket behind. Sorry, my lighting, it's dark out, so it's dark in here too. So I'm just gonna pop to the machine and baste this really, really close to the edges, and so that way it will stay put. So I'll be right back. All right, so I want to attach my tag before I forget, because I will. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. And I am going to just measure 2 inches down from the top here, and then center it. So 2 inches down. All right, so the next step is to assemble the back panel. The pattern originally calls for a strap reinforcement strip that goes here, and then your straps go into that along with your hang loop. But I'm gonna omit that and make it like my other backpack that I made before. So I just put them coming out of this top seam. So I'm gonna do the same thing here. So I cut my hang loop, which, because my straps are already ready, I'm gonna get my hang loop ready. And if you can tell, I made it a rolled hang loop on this one, so I'm going to mimic that and do that here with this guy. So I have 8 wide by 1.25, or 8 long by 1.25 wide. And what I'm using on the inside for the tube is this cork strapping. I got a bunch of it many years ago. I've never used it, so I'm gonna use it here. So I'm just putting double stick tape on the bottom half of my hang loop, so it's not centered, it's towards closer to me. And then I'm gonna just put this on here. This cording is about 6 inches long, roughly, thereabouts. And I'm just gonna lay it on my double stick tape. And then what you do is you just roll this up and around over that cording and line up your long edges, and I'm gonna just clip it into place. Oops. And then for these ends, I'm gonna start sewing at 1 inch up. So I'm gonna mark that with my chalk pencil so that I know where to start and stop. There, so I've got my 2 marks, and now I'm just gonna pop to the machine, and I'm just gonna stitch down this long edge here to enclose the tubing inside. All right, so 1/8 seam allowance, and then I'm gonna backstitch really well at starting and stopping. I'm going to use my hump jumper on this side. Might make sewing this a little bit easier. Oh yeah. If you have a zipper foot, might make this job a lot easier as well. My zipper foot is made out of metal, and I haven't taken the time to cover the bottom with tape, so this is easier for me. Okay, so I got it all done. I just have a little bit of excess here where the cork shifted when I was sewing it. So I'm just gonna trim that down. And then I'm going to burn it. And then I'm gonna leather edge paint it so that this is a nice raw edge. But it won't be raw because it'll be painted. So getting started on the zipper gusset area, I'm going to be quilting this as well. As you can see in my original bag, I quilted it, so I'm going to do the same thing. So I need to make all my marks, and then I'm going to glue my foam down, and then I am going to quilt it. Okay, so now that I've got all of my lines on the zipper gusset, I'm gonna flip it. And then I'm going to, just like I did before on my zipper pocket, I'm going to baste this foam down. And so there is just about 1/4 of an inch excess on either side, which is great. That's what I do want, because I am going to cut this down the center and then attach it to the zipper next, just like I did on the other piece. All right, I'm all done quilting my zipper panel, and what I did is I cut it in half right down the center, ta-da, and I'm going to glue it to my zipper. So I did amend the pattern a little bit because I wanted my zipper gusset to go down lower. The pattern has it stop kind of up here, and so I think I did like an additional 3 inches on each side, something like that. And so I just added that inch amount to the zipper gusset and then removed it from this bottom section piece. So mine is gonna look a little bit different, you know, because that's what I do. So I have my lining pieces here, and obviously my quilted zipper piece, and the part that I'm going to glue to the zipper is this part that has this overhang here. And then this side will go into the body of my bag. The zipper length that I am working with is 23 and a half. And the pattern calls for the pattern calls for 22. So it's not that much bigger. 23, it's an inch and a half bigger, but my zipper gusset isn't that long But yeah, so anyways, whatever. That's what I'm working with. We will see when it comes to final construction how well it works out. But so I'm just applying glue to the right side of my zipper gusset. And then I'm just going to lay my zipper right side down on it as well. And then I'm going to make my zipper sandwich by gluing my lining right side down on top of the zipper. And so where those zipper pulls are, you'll notice that it doesn't like to lay nicely there, so some clips will help. Or just stick it all in this case. All right, so I'm just going to go to the machine and I'm going to stitch this down on the cork side with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So I didn't announce what I was doing as I was doing it, but I sewed these wrong sides together and then I flipped and top stitched this side. And so for now I'm just going to clip the lining and the cork together to keep them out of the way, and then I'm just going to repeat that process for the other side. This time I'm gonna make sure that my corks are lined up, because as you can see I have a little bit of excess from quilting this cork top. Everything shifted, so you just want to make sure that the cork is lined up. And then flip it, and we're going to glue our lining down. All right, so back to the sewing machine, stitch down, cork top side up, cork side up, 1/4 inch. All right, so flip this lining down. And then what I'm going to do is trim down. See how I have this excess here? If you can see it, I'm going to trim that down. And I'm actually going to take it in a little bit more than what's sticking out because I want my lining to nest nicely inside my bag. So in order to do that, you have to make the lining a little bit smaller. So I'm going to cut off 1/2 inch here. And then you can see I have about a 1/4 inch overlap of the outer panel, and that will make the lining sit nicely. So I'm going to do the same thing over here. This side I don't have to take off a whole 1/2 inch, I just have to take off about a 1/4. There, so now when I sew my linings together, they will, or they should, a lot of times you got to go back and keep tweaking, but they should nest nicer. Okay, so the next step is we need to find our misplaced pieces. I guess it was these. Can't remember. Anyways, so yeah, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add zipper tabs to the ends of my zipper down here so that when you're unzipping it, you have something to hold on to. And I am going to just fold my sides in so that it is 1.25 inches wide, because I want it to cover the entire width of the zipper. Sorry, I know I'm casting a shadow here, but I'm making this 1.25 inch wide. That's all that you really gotta know. Now, if you're using a regular size zipper and not number 5 zip tape, then this zip tab would just be 1 inch wide. So you would cut it 2 inches and fold it all the way in towards the center. But mine, I just cut it, I think I did only cut it 2 inches wide. Yeah. And so it's not going to fold all the way to the center. I'm going to have a gap here. You can see there. So I'm going to do the same thing for this side. Basically, you're just folding each side in a 1/4 inch. Okay, so now I'm just going to pop to the machine. I'm going to top stitch all around all 4 sides of these to hold everything in place. All right, so I stitched down either side here, and then I also, just folded it in half and stitched them across the bottom to hold them in place. And now I'm just going to baste them well, I'm actually not. I'm just gonna glue them in place because this next step will stitch them. So I'm just putting a little bit of glue, and then I'm just gonna center it on the zipper. And I'm just going to, yeah, I'm gonna have to cut this down. I'm going to cut down this side so that it can all meet up. Now I can clip it into place. There we go. I'm going to do the same on this side. Okay, so my end pieces are glued into place, and so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my zipper end pieces and I'm going to clip it just to the other cork piece. I'm not going to clip the lining. Same on this side. And then you're going to flip it, and you're going to take one of your lining zipper end pieces and clip that into place. And you want to make sure if it's directional fabric that it's facing the right direction. And so just clip the lining together. Same on this side. And so now when we sew, we're going to sew across the cork to the zipper, skip this middle section, and then sew that side. And then we're going to do the same thing just on the linings. So I'll meet you at the machine. Okay, so to do this, I'm just going to fold my lining up out of place and then stitch this at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Flip my lining to the opposite direction and stitch just down this side. And then now I'm going to flip it so that my lining is on the machine and pull my main out of the way and do the same thing. And do the other side. Okay, so now you have your main sewn up to the zipper and your lining sewn up to the zipper, and you're going to lay everything flat, and you're going to sew just across the zipper section that you skipped over before. I'm going to do it for my lining side because I wasn't able to get as far on my lining as I was on my main, and because of the added bulk with the zipper pull, you need to be careful and go slow over this. And then now, when you flip it, this section is sewn, but these are still free from each other. And so repeat that for the other side. There we go. Ta-da! Okay, so we have our completed zipper gusset, and it measures 29 inches long, including these end pieces. And so before I go on to the next step, which is starting to attach it to the front, I'm going to stitch these guys into place. And so, like I said earlier, I changed mine. Mine is just one piece of cork. It's 1 inch wide by 3 inches long. And you place it 1 inch up from the bottom on the bottom of the zipper gusset, and I'm just going to lay it at an angle to where this bottom corner intersects with the zipper panel and this part overhangs. And I'm just going to clip this into place, then I'm going to baste those. I'm going to baste it to just the main, not to the leg. And so we need to do this side too. Alright, so I'll be right back. I'm just going to go baste these down. Okay, so I have my connectors basted, and I'm just going to trim off this little ear. And now we can attach our zipper gusset to the front. And so first, I'm going to mark my centers on the top and the bottom. And now, I had previously marked my centers here, but I'm just going to double check those since I have everything all sewn together now. Okay, they're good. So I want to make sure that I am attaching the side that doesn't have my connectors to the front, because these need to be on the back panel. So I'm going to take it right sides together, line up those midline marks, and get to clipping.
And so you'll notice I am only clipping the main to the main. I'm not clipping the lining. That is further towards the center. And then if it's all is measuring right, then you should be lining up at your bottom points here. But if you're not, you can just pull the excess where it's not fitting, and line up your bottoms, and then just ease it all in around the curves.
Alright, so now let's go stitch this all the way around. So before I start stitching this, I'm going to go in here and open the zipper because the zipper head is really close to the edge. So so that way I don't have any issues. This does get really thick through here, especially at the zipper teeth and with the foam, so just go slow and take your time. The pattern calls to stitch this at 3/8, and I'm gonna do just a quarter, just over a 1/4 inch. Alright, so we've got it all stitched down. You can see it right there. And so Joe suggests in the pattern to go within the seam allowance and do a second row stitching, and I think that's a great idea, so I am going to do that too. All right, so whoops, there we go. There's my second line of stitching. All right, so this is all attached there. And before I can attach my back panel, I need to add my hang loop and my straps. So again, I'm doing this a little bit differently than the pattern calls for because I'm omitting that back strap. And I am just going to take my hang loop, and with the folded, so this is the side that's painted and this is the folded side, I'm going to lay the folded side, I want that to be at the front of the bag, so when I lay it on my panel here, I'm going to lay the raw sides facing this, and I am just going to align it a 1/2 inch from my center mark right here. I'm just going to try to line it up as nice as possible. I'm not super adept at doing this type of hang loop. I don't really work with rolled handles and such very often, but I'm just going to do what I can to get my edges to meet up without it buckling. There we go. Okay, so that's like that, and then when it's all done, this will stand up like this. So I have those, and now I also need to lay my straps down, and because I didn't do the accent color, it has, so I can't tell what you can see, everything's so dark. But that middle seam where I sewed into, I'm gonna lay that down. And I'm just gonna lay these right next to my hang loops. So there's one strap, and then the second strap. And I'm hanging mine, or clipping mine to where there's a little bit hanging off because I want them to be straight after it's all sewn together. You can see on this one that I made before, they just pop right out of that seam line right there. Okay, so I'm just gonna pop to the machine and I'm gonna baste this all the way around so that this doesn't move whenever I'm inserting it to the zipper gusset. All right, so I have those basted down, and now I'm just gonna trim off that little excess hanging over the edge. Now, we get to attach this to here. And so I'm gonna go ahead and mark my bottom too before I get too far for the next step, whenever we're adding the bottom panel. Okie dokie. So just as before, we're going to match up our center lines, our center marks, and start clipping.
Once you get around this curve, you should find that it lays nicely.
Alright, so now we have to go sew this in place, and I'm going to sew it gusset side up just like before, and I'm going to be sure that I'm not sewing my lining. Alright, so I've got it all stitched together, and then I do have a little bit of excess where it shifted on me when I was sewing, so I'm just going to cut that off, but I'm going to be careful not to cut off beyond any of the excess because that's where my second stitch line is. And this is really just so the lining nests nicely in there. Check this side. Alright, now on to the base. So I put a piece of Peltex on mine, and it's about a 1/2 inch from all of the sides, although my little cutouts are, let's see, can you see it? Yeah, see, so I did 1/4 cutouts here. The pattern piece has the cutouts too, but it's different in the pattern because she uses different seam allowances, so follow the pattern for that. So make sure that your rag is open and unzipped, or else you're not going to be able to get into it. Stuff your straps in there. And then, I guess before I get started, what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark my centers on here so I can line them up. All right, so we are 9.5, so 4.75. Okay, so I got my center lines marked. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to match up my center line here to my center line here and clip it into place. I've never done a boxed bottom like this before with cutting out the corners, so I'm really excited to see if this makes it easier. Oh, and I can tell that I'm gonna have to cut mine out a little bit more because my stitch lines are telling me that. So I'm just gonna take out a little bit more. And then hopefully these cutouts will lay nicely inside this bottom section here. All right, let's try this again. Yeah, so what we're looking for is for these corner edges here to be aligned with your seams from your main panels. And mine look pretty good, so I'm going to clip this in. And so I'm going to pop to my machine and I'm just going to sew across here using my same 1/4 inch seam allowance. Okay, so I just stitched it with the main panel side down and the base up on top, and I just stitched right across that 1/4 inch, and it stops right at where my my main panel stitch line is. So now I'm gonna flip and do the other long edge. Okay, so it's a little bit wide. So my stitching probably was a little off. So I'm going to trim this in a little bit more. Let's try this. Alright, looks good. So you can kind of see what's happening if I get the lighting right. But what's happening is then when you pull the sides down, these little boxed edges are fitting in perfectly with each other. So it's going to create a nice little easy way to stitch. A nice little shelf here to stitch on. But so right now I'm just going to go and stitch this other long edge. Be right back. Okay, so I have both long edges of my base sewn in, and she says in the pattern to snip into the gusset, the side, the zipper gusset, right next to the stitching to help align this. So the video cut off, but what I did is I just snipped on this side gusset panel. I just snipped into the side here so that I can align my base to my side gusset. And now I'm just going to go stitch across there at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And it will meet up with my other stitches that are over here on the front and the back panels.
So you can see that my base, if you can, my base kind of shifted, so I have a lot of overhanging here, but I was able to stitch from this end to this end and meet up on my corners. Now I just have to do this other side. It does shift a lot, so if you want to glue it or double stick tape or staple it, something like that, it might make it a little easier.
Ooh, okay, I was able to get it, but not without a fight. On this one, this side, I flipped it to where the gusset side was up instead of the bottom. And then on this side, I was able to sew it from the bottom side, because what's happening is this is so thick right here, this front panel, that it's really hard to get under the foot. All right, so I'm just gonna trim. Well, first I'm just gonna flip it right side out, make sure that I got all of my seams to meet up, and then flip it back to finish the assembly. All in all, it looks pretty good. I just have to poke this out so that it lays nicer, but you can see, let's see, I got the bottom bases to meet up nicely. This side is a little bit wonky, but I think once I trim down my seam allowances, that'll poke out and be nicer. I did put Peltex on these pieces right here so that when the bag is standing on its own, it doesn't collapse into itself, because there's foam here and foam here, but I didn't do any foam or interfacing on the back or this front panel right here. So I wanted to make sure that this didn't fall in on itself. That seems to be doing the trick so far. And then of course all of my lining pieces have interfacing, so it should give it a little bit more structure. So now I've got it flipped back out, and now I am going to just trim down these seam allowances here. Try to trim down some of this bulk in these corners. Stinkers, no. Just burning all my threads off now so I can get a clearer view of how everything looks. So now we are ready to move on to finishing the lining. Okay, so I have one of my lining main panels, and then my pocket. This will become my pocket piece that is a slip pocket. The pattern calls for this to be a zipper pocket, but I'm just going to make it a slip pocket. So on my lining, my pocket lining, I'm going to mark the box here. Let's see. And I'll do it on this side. So again, keep in mind your direction of your fabric if it is directional. And when I'm making my box, I generally measure about 0.75 inches to an inch down from the top, and then 0.75 on each side. And this is going to give me almost let's see, a 5.5 inch box by 3/8. And so then you just lay this right sides up on your main panel. I'm gonna lay it out, make sure that I make it straight. I'm aligning the top of my pocket lining to the 2 inch mark, or technically 1.75 inch mark here, and that will put my pocket that starts at 2.75 inches. And then, so the next thing that we're gonna do is just go to the machine, we're gonna stitch just the long top and bottom line of the pocket, of the opening. For this, you wanna shorten your stitch length a little bit. I'm going to a 2.5. And then be sure to backstitch well at starting or at the beginning and the end. All right, so I've got our double lines. All right, so now I'm just gonna cut right down the center of those 2 lines that I just sewed, and I'm gonna be careful to not cut beyond the end points. I'm gonna come in about 1/8 of an inch or 1/4 of an inch from, so it's about 1/4 of an inch that I cut down from the ends of my stitch lines here. And now I'm just gonna snip a V up to those lines, the sewn lines, being careful not to cut through my stitches. And then I'm going to go to my iron, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this up and iron this seam flat, and then I'm going to pull this top seam down and iron that, and then flip it through and get it ironed and nice. So I just ironed everything, and you can see how it lays nice and flat on the outsides here. And on the insides, it is a little bit bubbly, but that's going to be hidden inside the pocket, so I'm not worried about it. So the next thing that you need to do is stitch around this entire box. And don't forget to lengthen your stitch back up. And trim those threads. And then the next thing we're going to do to finish this pocket is you just take the excess, the long end, and fold it up to meet the top edge and finger press it. And then I'm going to flip this right side up, and I am going to start at the bottom right side where this hole is, or where this opening is. And I'm going to backstitch well and just stitch all the way around the 3 sides to close the pocket. Then now I'm just going to go back and press this because from where I folded it up, it kind of creased the interfacing. But we have our pocket enclosed, and then here's what it looks like from the front. Okay, so I went ahead and ironed it, got everything nice and neat. And now what you want to do is you need to cut off a 1/4 inch from the bottom so that when you're sewing it, it sits nicely inside the bag. So I'm just going to do that now. So just a 1/4 inch off the bottom here. And then we need to attach the side that has the pocket to the to the lining, but on the back side of the bag. So the front side of my bag is here. So I'm going to clip my lining to just the lining here. And this is going to be a bit wonky, but, oh, first let me mark my center. So I'm going to mark my center first. Can't really see that. Go ahead and do it on this one so I don't forget. All right, so right sides together, clip your linings. And you might have to, clip into the curve here to make it nest nicely. And don't be afraid to use a lot of clips because we are clipping around the exterior, so this is going to get a little bit wild. All right, so I'm gonna skip down to the gusset down here at the bottom, and you want to make sure that you're clipping it to the same side. But I'm just going to clip at the bottom and then ease the sides in.
Just like we did the exterior.
Okay, so now we just need to go stitch this together. And we're going to stitch this at a 1/2 inch seam allowance so that it comes out a little bit smaller and it'll nest. All right, so in order to get to this side, make it lay flat, you need to pull your exterior over, and then you want to make sure that you're just stitching the lining. And again, 1/2 inch seam allowance here. All right, so I've got it all sewn down, and now I'm just going to trim all of this down so that it lays nicely. Okay, so the next bit is we need to attach the other lining panel to the other side, but you can't get to it right now, so you have to flip your bag, reach up inside your lining, and then flip it. And then now you can access your other side. And you can check out your handiwork for what you just sewed down. Okay, so same thing for this side. Pin your linings right side together. Okay, so same thing as before, gusset side up, 1/2 inch seam allowance all the way around this other side. Ooh, my arm is tired from wrestling the bag, but I got it sewn in, so now I'm just going to trim my seam allowances like before. So I flipped the bag to where my pocket was out because I didn't do the zipper pocket the way that she has it in the pattern, so I need to cut this loop down or off because we're gonna do a 1-2 flip method, which I thought was pretty ingenious. So I'm gonna try it. I've never done this before. So I'm just gonna trim this bottom piece off. There we go. And what that did is that made this pocket open. And so we will use that to flip later on. So the last step for the lining is you need to add the bottom like we did on the exterior. So I have my snips cut out here, my corners, and I'm just going to align it in here, right sides together, and clip it into place, and then sew it, just like I did the exterior. Now I'm going to go to the machine and I'm going to stitch these down with the 1/2 inch seam allowance. Whoa. So I know that once I get to this part of bag making, my camera angle isn't great. She can't see what I'm doing. But I'm just going to wrestle with this, and I am going to sew right here a 1/2 inch all the way across. Try to sew it gusset or bottom panel side up.
Birthing hole. So we should back stitch well at the beginning and the end and leave that 6-inch hole.
All right, so I've got my birthing hole over here. Let's see where I stopped sewing. This line's a little crooked, but I'll fix that once we change. Hey, Druzy. Once I flip it. Okay, so next you need to sew the short edges, and we're gonna do the same thing that we did on the exterior, and we're gonna snip into the short side of the gusset. There, so we've got our short edges and they match up with our long edges. All right, so I'm just going to trim down my seam allowances here, just around where I stitched. I'm gonna leave this section long. I'm just gonna use my scissors for this. Okay, it's all trimmed. Now we're gonna pull our bag through this birthing hole here. Alright, so we've got everything all turned correctly. With cork, I just like to roll the seams in between my fingers. That helps it lay correctly. It's a very thick seam right here because of the quilting and the flip method done on this pocket. So you just want to make sure that you got all your corners and everything poked out how you want them. Because next we seal up both of those holes that we left. So what you do is you reach in through your pocket and you grab the lining. You pull it up and through and align it. And then now we're going to sew this birthing hole closed, and we're going to make sure that our stitch lines meet up with the birth hole lines that we made earlier. Okay, so I'm just going to trim this from here and then seal up my pocket. I think if I were going to make this bag again, I wouldn't do this step. I wouldn't leave the lining exposed or open because I didn't add the zipper in this pocket here. So I would just probably make this inside slip pocket wider and just flip through there. But now I know that this is a cool technique to use in the future. Because when you do that, it seals up the bottom. I need a good ironing in here, but it seals up the bottom, which you can't see, so you just have to trust me. So now the last step to finish the lining is you're gonna pull this pocket out, and then we just need to stitch this closed. Okay, so I'm gonna go to my ironing machine. What is that thing called? My ironing machine, jeez. I'm gonna go over there to my ironing machine and press this really well. All right, so I got it pressed in there. Sorry about my dogs. I got it all nice and pressed. It's like as soon as you go like that, it kind of gets all wonky, but whenever you're just looking at it nice, or whenever you're just looking down in it, it looks good. So I'm happy with the way that the lining fits in there, and I really like the silhouette of it. It's a nice shape. So yeah, the last step now, bless you, Ruka. Hey, Joppa. The last step is to attach our straps. Hold on, let me kick these dogs out of here. Go, 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 go. Go on. Okay, sorry about that. Children, right? Okay, so the first step is we have to put this through our middle, or put it over our middle bar here. Oh, actually, the first step is to mark. I'm going to mark my rivet lines so that once I get it all done, I don't have to mess with it. Because it's going to get a little bit wonky up in here because you got to do it a little bit backwards. Because it's already attached at one end, so you have to just kind of maneuver this part. So I'm going to poke my holes before I go any further. Same on this guy. Okay, so you got to make sure that your strap is not twisted. Put it up and over that center bar. And then from the outside, you're going to loop it through down here. And then you need to give yourself some excess in the center bar because you need this to go back over that bar. So you put it up one side and then loop it back down the other side. And see, this is where it gets wonky. Kind of a pain to work with. So now I'm just going to overlap it and then punch the holes. Clip it first. All right, everybody, so we have finished our backpack. I hope that you enjoyed the tutorial and that you didn't have any snafus. Leave me a comment, like, share, pin, do all that fun stuff. You guys know the drill. As always, any sort of exposure helps me get my channel out to more people, so I really appreciate it when you guys take the time to subscribe and like and comment. It helps me a lot, and it gives me more motivation to keep going. So, yeah. I hope that you guys enjoyed the tutorial, and be sure to follow Country Cow Designs as well. I will link her channel somewhere here, either on the video in a banner or in the description box below. The round circle, maybe over here, I don't know yet. I haven't added it, but the round circle with the narwhal is the subscribe button, and then I will link the, let's see, which video should I link? The range backpack. I feel like backpacks, but you know. Or maybe the teddy. I don't know. I'll link a video over here for you to check out as well. And yeah, I hope that you guys are staying safe and healthy out there. And let's be kind to one another.